Hello, class, the receiving students and teachers. You may be seated. Thank you. I'd like to welcome every one of you, the receiving students, teachers, and the model class back to another week of science. Also, a special hello to all the schools, the receiving schools who have joined us this year. Now, class and the receiving students, we are still on the same strand and the same substrand. Also, still on the same outcome and the same unit title. Now, a reminder to teachers in the receiving school, this week lessons, our last lessons on the strand, substrand, and unit title. So teachers, you are supposed to be preparing a test, a unit test to be given to your students at the end of this week. Now, class and the receiving students, in our previous lessons, the lessons that we had so far on reproduction and environment, we looked at reproduction on plants, animals, and humans, or what we say on living things. Now I have some pictures there. The first one shows us, or should remind us of the lesson that we had on cells. The second one, if I can have Junita to tell us, what does that picture remind you of? Which lesson? Juanita?
Flowering plants.
Very good, thank you. Flowering plants or parts of flowering plants. Let's have Yoa to tell us what the next picture shows us. Okay, let's have Nancy. Yoa says he can't remember. Let's have Nancy.
Reproductive system.
Okay, reproductive system. Let's see what I have. Plants, animals, and human reproduction. We only have a picture of human, but that should remind us of reproduction in living things. What about the last one? Let's have Ella.
Human reproductive system.
Okay, that's what Ella gives us, human reproductive system. How about you, Fiona?
Life cycle of fish.
Life cycle of fish. Okay, can be life cycle of fish or internal and external reproduction. Our last lesson, we had a look at asexual and sexual reproduction. Now I have a picture, I have an object with me, a plant. Now, if I can have Eddie to tell us, what type of reproduction does this plant follow? What reproduction does it follow? Asexual or sexual?
Asexual.
Asexual, good, thank you. We have a pineapple. Pineapple is one of the plants that reproduces asexually. We also have a picture on the screen that shows us of plants that reproduce asexually. Now, to the class and the receiving students, I'd like you to tell your teachers the difference between sexual and asexual reproduction. Receiving students, please tell your teacher the answer. You have all gone through this in the last lesson or the previous lesson. Michelle, if you can give us your answer.
Asexual reproduction is the reproduction taking place from one parent only reproducing. And sexual reproduction is between both parents or when pollination or fertilization take place.
Very good, thank you, Michelle. So we have the answers. They're on the screen, you can see for yourself the difference between sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Now I'd like us to have a look at this picture. Look carefully to see what you can see in this picture. There are some very little things there. Those ones who are sitting in front are receiving students. Those of you who are sitting in front, you should be able to see some little things in there that your friends from the back cannot see. Now let's have Rose, if you can tell us quickly, just 3 things that you can see in that picture.
Grass, sea, and the clouds.
Very good, thank you. And there are many others besides what Rose has mentioned, given names. Now that introduces us to the topic, what's in my environment. Now looking at the same picture, what's an environment? What's an environment? That picture should be able to help you receiving students in the class to give your answers. What's an environment? Thank you. Let's have Andrea, please.
Things around us.
Things around us. Thank you. Now let's see what I have. We have 2 definitions for environment. One, it says generally everything living and non-living around us. Now in the picture, you can see we have dogs there. There's a dinghy or an outboard motor there. We have a toilet there. The sea, sand. So that tells us that an environment is everything living and non-living around us. Now, scientifically, an environment is the natural conditions in its habitat that allows living things to survive and reproduce. What is an habitat? What is an habitat? Let's have Diana, if you can tell us what an habitat is.
Habitat is a place where different kinds of plants and animals live.
Very good answer. She answered that question very well. Habitat is the place where living things live. Now we look at examples of some habitats. That's the first one. The next. The third one, and the next. So these are some examples of some habitats. We have the sea, mountain habitat with plants around. We have the river and the swamp. Why do different types of living things live and reproduce in different types of habitats? In each of these habitats, the living things that live in them are very different. Now, for example, in the sea, you have fish living in the sea. You also have fish living in the river. But the fish that are living in the river and sea are different. A fish that lives in the sea cannot live in the river. A plant that grows in the swamp cannot grow beside the sea. Now, that should help you to come up with an answer to that question we have. Anyone receiving students? You can quickly discuss and give your answer to your teacher. Anyone with an answer? Jean, if you can give us the answer that you came up with your friends. Why do different types of living things live and reproduce in different types of habitats? Okay, let's have our friend, what's his name? Jeremy, please.
Depending upon the conditions of the environment.
Thank you. Depending upon the conditions of the environment. Good. Now, different living things have different special features or bodies that allow them to survive and reproduce in their habitat. Now, it also says different living things need special natural conditions, like Jeremy has said, in order to survive and reproduce. Conditions such as sunlight. Plants and animals, they need sunlight, water, food. Now, our topic is what's in my environment, but within this topic we have the activity that we will be doing is to find evidence of reproduction in the identified habitats. I will be letting you know shortly of those habitats, but the activity that we will do is to find evidence of reproduction. What is evidence? You are going to find evidence of reproduction. What's your understanding of evidence? Yes, thank you. Let's have you. Receiving students, please. Tell your teacher what you know of that word evidence.
Proof.
Good. Proof or a sign. So when you are out in the areas that you will be assigned to, the habitats that you are assigned to, you will be assigned to, you have to look for proof or signs of reproduction in that habitat. Now, I have one evidence here with me. This is an evidence of reproduction of a plant called golden showers. Around Christmas, you will see this plant putting yellow flowers. That is an evidence of reproduction from this plant. Now, you will be looking for something like this when you go out to your habitat, receiving students. That is what you will be also doing too. Now, teachers in the receiving schools, in my situation, I only have 3 habitats for our model class to go to. In your case, you are in the rural areas, so you should have more than 3 places or 3 habitats for your students to investigate to find out evidence of reproduction. Now, this one shows the classroom, and we have the all vegetable garden, the flower garden, and the pond. These are the 3 habitats that the model class will be going out to investigate what's in there. Now, I also already assigned the groups that will go to these certain habitats. So, model class, you should know where you should go to. Groups 1, 2, 3, 4, you are going to the all vegetable garden over there. Okay. 5 and 6, you're going to the flower garden. This flower garden is close to the pond. It's in the where PNGI is. And groups 7, 8, and 9, you are going to the pond. I hope you have all taken note of where you are going to. You're not going out right now. Now, teachers in the receiving schools, we have made slight changes to our worksheet, student worksheet, and I have a copy of that here on the chart. I'd like you teachers to take note of these changes, especially evidence of reproduction. That's the changes we have done. Teachers, these changes have been done because we are actually looking at reproduction, not what's in the environment. So if you can take note of this and make changes to that, so your students can use that worksheet to do their work when they go out. Now our instruction, take note, class and the receiving students. Now in your groups, you are going to write the names of living things you think live in the habitat. This one here. You are going to predict quickly of that. And in the second, when you go out, you check against that list you have. If you said frog there, and there's no frog in that habitat, you put a cross, or if it's there, you put a tick. What evidence you find, you have it written there. Okay, that's about a second instruction I've already told you of. Third has been already done. Now safety, please take note of the safety students, model class and receiving students. That's for yourself. For plants, we have two, that is the first one. And that's the second. Plants like you, they need to be taken care of, so please take note of that. Okay, I'd like the class to stand up. And you are going to go to those habitats that you have been assigned to, please.
In our group, we look for the habitat, it's pond, and the evidence that we found are frogs. They can reproduce. There's male and female frog. The male frog releases thousands of eggs, and female frog releases thousands of eggs. The male frogs also releases sperms to fertilize the eggs. The eggs hatch out and turn into a tadpoles. The tadpoles go through some stages, and after that they become an adult frog. And other evidence we found is the water lilies. The water lilies produce flowers in process of pollination, and the flowers open by the sunlight. Sometimes we just use the sunlight to open. And the other evidence is the fish. The fish lays eggs and they hatch, and you can see that in the pond there's some evidence of reproduction inside.
Away eggs there.
The habitats we have looked at in the flower garden is flower for seeds, grass, new shoots, and eggs, leaves, bugs, and butterfly pupas. Thank you.
All dry finish, eating was on. Anything to come up here. Dry na goes on. How will they reproduce?
Hey, sorry. Get a shot of flies mating.
Okay. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to explain how what evidence is there to show reproduction. So you will start with one of these plants. So for example, this plant, this one here, which one tells you there is evidence of reproduction?
These are evidence of reproduction in plants.
Production or what?
It reproduces sexually.
You can explain further whatever. From flower to seed, seed to flower.
Evidence that you have the flower, you have the fruit. You see? You hold it properly. So you have the flower there, you have the fruit. Receiving students and teachers, we have come to the end of our lesson on finding out evidence of reproduction in our habitat. You have seen your friends, the model class, investigating in 3 habitats: the all vegetable garden, the pond, and the flower garden. Now, to sum up our lesson, all living things have special bodies that help them to survive and reproduce in their environment or in their habitat. Secondly, all living things need special conditions, especially natural conditions, to help them to survive and reproduce. Conditions like sunlight, water, food, temperature, and good soil. Now, you've also looked at evidence of reproduction. In humans, we have evidence of babies. You see babies lying around, or babies running around, that shows you that there is evidence of reproduction in humans. Now, in animals, we have babies. We also have eggs, and from eggs, we have babies. With plants, we have flowers. From the flowers, we have fruits or seeds. This all shows us evidence of reproduction. We don't actually see reproduction with our eyes, but we can see the things that I've just mentioned, and that shows us that there is reproduction in living things. Now, our key phrase for this lesson is evidence in reproduction. And teachers and students, our next lesson is going to be on sexual patterns of living things. Now, a reminder to teachers and the students in the receiving schools,